out where are we in terms of development and actually strategizing for the next coming year. That is a discussion we are going to be having, but looking at my clock is about 15 minutes past the hour, so allow me to introduce my panel of experts. Beginning from my immediate left, we have Imran Mohammed. Imran Mohammed is a UDM youth leader and also a public policy analyst. Good morning, Imran.
Good morning to you, Ben. Good morning to Kenyans.
Karibu, it's been a while since the last time you were here.
Happy New Year, and thank you for having me again.
All right, Karibu sana. And just next to him, we have Engineer Crispus Wadiba, who is a regular here, and also we do talk about politics a lot. He's a principal infrastructure project expert and also a governance and leadership expert. Karibu sana, Bwana Crispus.
Thank you, and good morning to Kenyans.
And to begin with you very quickly is that the photos on the round in the internet is making rounds in the internet. A lot of Kenyans have had their share of input in regards to President William Ruto of Kenya, President Kaguta Yoweri Museveni of Uganda, and also the leader of official opposition, for now at least, Raila Odinga in Uganda. Of course, we're talking about a lot in regards to Africa Union Commission chairmanship position. I remember we had more or less the lobbying during the the country wanted CS. There's a CS who wanted to become an AU Commission chairperson.
Amina Mohammed.
Yes, Amina Mohammed.
Yes.
And there was the same lobbying, but this one is quite different because there are some people who want the Azimio leader to clinch this position. There are some people who are a little bit cagey about that. I would like to pick your mind on that, Engineer.
Well, for me, I'm encouraged, first of all, just to see Raila and Ruto working together, having a conversation for the sake of this country where politics is considered to be very toxic and hot. That is a moment of calm that this country really desires at this point where we have serious economic challenges that we are dealing with, and we would want leaders to come together and discuss. So for me, that picture is a reflection of how mature our politics have been, that we may disagree on certain things, but when it comes to fighting or standing for the country, we can be united. If you look at the context where this conversation is happening, it's in Uganda, where I don't think it is possible to see Besigye, Bobi Wine, and Kaguta Museveni together. Yeah. That's something the Ugandans dream about, that they wish they could see their leaders work together when it comes to discussing matters of their country and not focusing on divisions which are based mainly locally. As far as the EU position is concerned, we made an attempt last time when Amina Mohammed positioned himself as a candidate. We lost. I think this is a time for East Africa to come together and be able to put a strong campaign position and be able to get this position. If you go to Addis Ababa, you realize these positions has always been held by people from South Africa, West Africa, North Africa. And if you look at the positions in the Secretariat, they are also skewed to that region because most of our people have never held important, influential positions within the AU to be able to also help us grow our careers in terms of diplomacy. Many Kenyans don't even have good positions at the UN, at the AU, because we have never had some of our leaders holding key positions in these organizations. Therefore, if Raila can be there, for me, aside from what people are looking at being, we are removing from the local politics.
Or weakening the opposition.
Weakening the opposition. There are also opportunities that will come with him being a chairman of that commission because as a country, we'll be able to leverage on his position and be able to even grow further as a country. We are also being global. And also being global means we also need to pursue other business opportunity in the region. With him being in the commission, it will be easier for us to open doors in the African market where, as we pursue the Kenya Kwanza plan of manufacturing and agriculture, we will be able to find new opportunities in those areas. So for me, I'm happy to see Ruto and Raila working together on this issue and also reaching out to the president of Uganda, who is the eldest leader in the region, to be able to talk to the other countries, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, to support Kenyan candidacy. If that can be achieved right now, I believe Raila's win is sure.
Imran, Engineer seems to be on the side that supporting Raila Odinga to clinch the seat. UDM was once in Azimio, now it's in the Kenya Kwanza, and the Kenya Kwanza Brigade are all out to ensure that the Azimio leader clinches this seat. Something that a lot of pundits have argued that one could weaken the opposition. Another thing is that another section is arguing that this guy has been an infrastructure. I believe, Engineer, you can identify High Commissioner for Infrastructure at the AU. So he's the best suited. And coming from the region, East Africa region, and Engineer has rightly said that a lot of these appointments more or less are skewed to the west and to the north of the continent. Yes,
Ben, I will love to agree with Mr. Engineer here. If you look at the political environment we came from as Kenyans, you will agree with me that there is a time when Kenya is more important than our own political indifferences. From the 90s up to now, you have seen the type of political environment Kenya has experienced, the type of campaign structure Kenya has gone through across all through the elections that we have experienced. Now is the time, at least there is hope. You know, for the last 1 year, we've enjoyed some form of political harmony by, you know, the opposition and the current government working together and understanding each other in terms of, you know, putting Kenya first. So now, given the political history and, you know, CV of His Excellency Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, who else is better suited here in Kenya to take such a position? So I am for the idea that it is right and it is the right time for all Kenyans to put all their political differences aside and support the campaign of Raila Odinga, His Excellency Right Honorable Raila Odinga, because he is the best fit for this position. And like Engineer has said, with him taking the leadership of this position, it comes with a lot of gains for Kenya and for East African community as a regional bloc.
Let's look at the opposition. He has been a political enigma for the last more than 30 years in the Kenyan politics. Where does this leave the opposition?
The current opposition?
Yes.
I believe His Excellency, again, former Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka is ready to take the mantle from Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, as the Engineer will agree with me. Because as we speak right now, there is a bit of a turmoil in the opposition side because Raila Odinga is now in bed with the president, you know, given the animosity, given the intense campaign period that people have gone through. I mean, who envisioned Raila Odinga being in the position he is right now in the status of the Kenyan politics at the moment? Nobody. Nobody will have imagined to see Right Honorable Raila Odinga in the same picture with, you know, President William Ruto. But then this is the nature of politics. This is the country we live in. Kenya is a democratic state. Kenya is a very civilized country. And all our politicians, I think, are ready to put aside all their indifference for the greater good of the country. But then coming to the opposition now, I think with the position he has occupied as the second man in the country, Right Honorable, former Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka is the right fit to take over from Raila Odinga.
And Engineer, still on the same note, yesterday when we saw the photos, and actually they are plastered in all the newspapers now, in the front page, and the sentiments from a section of Kenyans, exactly who will now be left to watch over. And another thing, being endorsed by one of the Africa statesmen, the eldest actually, one of the eldest leaders we have in Africa for over 30 years that Kaguta Museveni has been the head of state. He has made connections and networks which would play a key role in actualizing Raila Odinga as the AU commission. Another thing, we never saw them in a state house or in a fancy hotel. Actually, we saw as though the president of Uganda was herding his cattle. Does that make things a little bit easier for Kenyans to digest?
Well, what is important for us to appreciate is that the conversations that were there between Museveni, Raila, and Ruto go beyond just the AU Commission issues. Museveni has never trusted Raila. So it was very important for Ruto to come and convince Museveni that it is important that you support this man. This man is not the person you're always suspicious of because of his history in the opposition. You know very well Besigye and Raila's good friends. People in ODM are very good friends of Bobby Wine. So therefore, for Museveni to support Raila, given that he has a lot of influence within the opposition of Uganda, is not an easy thing. And therefore, Ruto needed to come there in an environment away from state infrastructure to convince this elder that this man we are presenting as the AU chair is a different man. I have made him a prime minister. Remember, Ruto is always clear, said, I am the one who made Raila the prime minister. And now he wants to make him the chair of the EU Commission. So therefore, he must be able to sell his candidate and convince this man that even with your support, we are in the right direction. So therefore, Kenyans and the whole region as large need to come together and support Raila, not because the opposition will lose a key leader or the Luo Nyanza community will lose a kingpin, but this man will bring the leadership, the kingship that he has always had in Kenya as a regional kingpin who is able to drive the East African region in a position that is of influence. Remember, we have had a lot of conflicts in this region. We have challenges in Sudan. We have challenges in Ethiopia. We have challenges in East Africa, in Somalia. We have challenges in DRC Congo. With the EU position, we have an opportunity to also influence peace in this area. And for example, in Kenya, we need peace in the region for us to be able to take advantage of the regional strength that we have. Our economic position as a country is not enough for Kenya as a population only. We need the whole region to be stable so that when we go to do business out there, our economy is able to take the full advantage. We have seen how the challenges of the Kenya shilling we have gone through, losing to the Uganda shilling, to the Tanzania shilling. We need now that stability in the region so that we can maximize the gains that we have as a country to strengthen our economy. And with this position, we have that opportunity to do that. So therefore, aside from the local politics, somebody will come to fill that position. I believe Kalonzo will step up, Martha Karua will step up, Eugene Wamalwa will do his part, and many others, including ourselves, will do our role in making sure that politics is stable in this country and is progressive. A lot of the time is that we are always looking at opposition as a tool to oppose government. I think it's important that we go beyond always opposing government to find a political framework where both the opposition and government are able to work even in areas as important as the health that we are discussing today. We don't, even the housing that we are having a challenge with, we need to have conversations that are able to be progressive rather than just opposing. So if Raila moving away to AU may give that room, I think it's good for the country to consider that.
And they say a picture speaks 1,000 words. Let's look at that photo keenly. The way they were dressed, how casual they were. There are no aides, there are no bodyguards, there are no fancy hotel, there are no fancy suits, there are no signing documents. Does that just show you how easy the three of them were, the conversation that you were having was more or less cordial on both sides?
I believe whatever conversations that were there and whatever they'll agree is what we can call a gentleman's agreement. It will not be written anywhere. There'll be no MOU, but those covenants that they'll arrive at will be binding, because men at their age, we are talking about Museveni, who is close to 80, Raila, who is already 80, Ruto, who is approaching his 60s. These are men who are going to have a covenant, and whatever they'll agree is between the three of them. We may not know what they have agreed, but I believe it is for the interest of the community, is the interest of the region, and is in the interest of Kenya to have this position achieved.
Yeah, and the last one on in regards to this, Imran, I'm looking at, because the next place we are looking at is the cabinet retreat that was there last week, and I'm quite sure my director, we have a few clips on in regards to that. But do you believe that the leaders that Raila will leave as soon as he's becoming AU Commission Chairman, that is if he clinches the seat, are up to task?
Ben, I think...
Bearing in mind that he has been in the Kenyan politics for more or less post-independence.
Ben, I think all Kenyans know that the opposition is up to task. The opposition has done a fantastic job throughout the years with, Raila Odinga leading them. But if you look at the team and the members in the opposition, you find that there are people who have held very important positions in this country. You've seen that there are people who have, history in Kenya. There are people who have, good track record in this government of Kenya. So I believe if you look at Kalonzo Musyoka and you look at Martha Karua and Eugene Wamalwa, they have all held very important positions in this government. And they have all served Kenya to the best ability they could. I believe going forward, they are ready, they are ripe to take over the position of Raila Odinga, and we believe in their capacity.
Just to add on what you said, I think looking at the history of Martha Karua, she's a tested opposition leader. She has been there for the last 30 years. She's probably only served government maybe for a very short time during Kibaki's time. But the rest of the time, she's been able to articulate issues that check on the government. The only person maybe who has a very limited appetite for being in opposition is probably Kalonzo or Eugene Wamalwa, who whenever they go to the opposition, very quickly they find their way into government. So I fear if they are the opposition leaders, we may end up with another handshake of sorts. But let's give them a chance.
Yeah. we are also joined by also a regular here, Gibson Gisore. Gibson Gisore is an advocate of the High Court and is also a lecturer at the Embu University, a law lecturer and also a governance and policy expert. Karibu sana wakili.
Asante sana, Troy.
And as you warm up, there was a cabinet retreat last week in Vasha, and a number of issues were discussed. Of course, a lot of that, the media were kept outside, but we were able to speak with the Secretary to the Cabinet on Sunday. I was at her function in Kerugoya County, and she was able to tell us just a few things in regards to what the cabinet agreed on. And also, we also had the Labour CS, Florence Bore. We are looking for jobs for Kenyans. Let's first of all listen to that conversation.
Tuko kwa ile program ya labor migration ambapo tunatafuta kazi kwa vijana ambao wanaenda ng'ambo. Tuko kwa hiyo laini, we want to encourage our youth to be able to apply jobs through the National Employment Authority ambayo iko kwa ministry yangu. And those who are very fast, I can give you the link that you can be able to access jobs internationally. You go to www.neaims.go.ke. I'll repeat, neaims.go.ke. Ukienda hapo utapata kazi ambapo vijana wanaweza kuaccess kule ng'ambo. But currently tuko na kazi ya wauguzi nurses kule Saudi Arabia.
Part of the conversation that we had was coming back to reflect on government policy, to reflect on what that government policy means and how together we can work towards implementing it in order to see the realization of the policy goals and objectives. We had a couple of conversations here around education, and the power of transformation that education brings, encouraging parents to ensure that no child is left behind, that children go to school, the curriculum is being updated to ensure that the child of Kenya today is able to learn information and curriculum that is relevant for the industry, and that children are able to leave school and go into the workplace when ready.
Has been Mercy Wanjao speaking on Sunday with the media in regards to the cabinet retreat that was there in Naivasha, and earlier on Florence Bore, the Labour CA, is talking about more jobs for the youth. And I remember having a conversation with her, and she said that in Germany there are so many jobs, but you also have to have at least some level of the German language, which has been an issue as well. But again, for the first one, www.neamis.go.ke for those seeking legitimate jobs outside the country. But away from that, Gibson, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
And we had a cabinet retreat. The first things first, even before the retreat, some Kenyans were asking, looking at the damaging report by the Auditor General and also by the Control of Budget on how we are spending the meager resources that we have. They believe that since they were in Naivasha, they could have maybe done the meeting at the state lodge, or even at the Kenya School of Government, just to bring some of the costs down, because I'm looking at the CSs, their aides, their security. I'm looking at the MPs. I think they're close to 200. Their aides, their drivers, their, maybe we could have tried and saved some coins.
Yeah, we could have, but Troy, we also need to know that the government spends taxes. And these taxes, these monies are not expended, and they are not used for the benefit of people, because wherever they went, there were people working there. The owner must have gotten money. That money is not going to use it in Saudi Arabia. It's going to use it locally. So the economy in Naivasha improved greatly. I think I was having a conversation recently with somebody, because our industry is also, the tourism industry is ailing. So if government can be able to promote it by getting all its key government officials in one place, then that means the spending in that place will go high, and a lot of money will move from Nairobi to another town. So, I think Waitima should be happy, because that is his county. Yeah. I'm sure some of that money can end up in his pocket. Yeah. So that is one way of looking at it. The other way is what you're saying, that they could have as well gone to KSG or gone to even have a meeting at State House for 3 days. It's neither there nor there, really. But what I love about the whole thing is that they were discussing performance. That is very key. Performance, that now, where are we? Checking their script and trying to determine where have we failed, how are we going to improve. I like the perspective that some ministers were actually put on the spot. They were told to explain why is it that their passports backlog, and they were given timelines, given 3 months to deal with it. There are issues to do with the IDs. I think I'm happy that they could have lifted the issue with the IDs. Now they can be able to generate the new generation IDs. That is going to be something which goes critical, which is very critical to the Kenyan, because IDs are very key.
Just a minute, Wakili. We have an issue with your microphone, which is going to be fixed in the next couple of seconds. But I think, engineer, you can pick from there. The pinning of MPs. You remember some of the session that the media were allowed in. You could feel that indeed the president was putting on the spot everyone. Well, doesn't matter whether you are a CS or you are an MP, but he wants results.
I think one of the things we really have to agree is that since the coming of this government, which is now 17, 18 months ago, the only person who has been able to communicate the government agenda has been the president himself. And that has really exposed a weakness in the administration, which he took that opportunity to express that you are not able, even as members of parliament, to articulate issues of government. You have seen cabinet secretaries on Twitter. One is saying this, another one is saying this. They are not able to speak as one voice. So therefore, this retreat was a good opportunity for them also to reflect on the agenda of one government speaking in one voice. And one government means the judiciary, the executive, and the legislature able on issues of national interest, having a common position so that the interests of the country can be always put forward. But when we have members of parliament, not even if we invite them here, not being able to articulate a very simple issue like, for example, the housing levy or the agenda on housing, for example, leave alone the levy itself. But that the fact that Kenya needs housing, and this is one way of achieving the housing requirements of the country, is a big problem. We have a whole legislature that is very young, but ineffective in terms of articulating the agenda or position of government. We have a cabinet that is, yes, political in one way, technocrat in another way, but is not able to articulate the government position. So that is an area that needs to be addressed. We have PSs who are very young, who have not been in government before, and they are still not taking enough time to understand how the government works. So if you're taking 17 months to understand these issues, and we have only 3 years left for the end of your government, then it is important that people need to retreat, review, what we call have a self-reflection, kuwa na kamkutano with yourself, and understand what is your position in this government and what you are planning to do as we go forward. I believe this retreat also should bear some fruit in terms of changes in how the government carries itself around. We need to see a government that communicates coherently. We need to see executives who are able to understand the pain Kenyans are going through and are able to communicate in a better way. We need policy that translates immediately to the betterment of Kenyan lives. Not just policy in paper, policy on media interviews, but policy that changes the lives of Kenyans in reality, in real time.
Wakili, we fixed the issue. And I like the way engineer has talked about. One is that you do remember the performance contracts. We have seen numerous cabinet meetings just to put the house in order. We have also seen the retreat now, just to try and put the government and the house in order, and also pin some of the key members of the cabinet who are not doing exactly what they should be doing.
Yes, I mean, that is, I think, very important, and that's why I like the president, because he's a man who is in charge. He leads from the front, and he's very demanding, according to what the people who have been close to him say. So there's nothing you can, if you tell him that you have done a road in Lamu, you will want to do a trip to Lamu to go see the road, so that you don't tell him things which are not there. And that is very important. A president who is in touch with reality is a president of the people. And that's what, I think the script is trying to cultivate to Kenyans, that I'm your president. Whether you elected me or not, I will ensure that you get the service that you deserve. The meeting in Naivasha was very important because they were able to take stock of what it is that they have been able to do from the time they joined government and up to this particular moment, and what are the bottlenecks. The part I liked about the bottlenecks, that they were very specific. They did not hide behind any shadows. If it's Waitima, whose ministry has a lot of issues, we call him to the spot and tell him, what is the problem? Why are you unable to solve these issues to help Kenyans? And you know, that is very good. Next time you wouldn't want to be put on the spot unless you want to be sacked. So that puts them into check, and they are able to go, they are now going to come up with modalities to sort out some of the challenges which affect Kenyans, as Waitima said. Something else, I mean, I've seen what the CS was talking about, labor. It's important to understand we have that National Employment Authority, and I think that's the link which the minister was trying to give to Kenyans, that, you know, this is a government thing, the jobs which are there are legit. They're not these ones which you'll be told and then you find that you've been sold into some other areas which you cannot be able to be verified. So I hope they have mechanisms to follow through the people who have been employed through these jobs, how they are going to, their welfare is on the other side. And that is what is going to help with employment. Ever much I could have wished that we don't go that way, but that's where we are, because it's better we create the jobs here. It's better because these people have been trained with Kenyan resources. We don't have enough nurses as yet. If you go to some hospitals, you will actually find that there is a deficiency of nurses. Or if we could be able to come up with a program, much as we are trying to have export labor, ensure that the local market is satisfied first. But that is still a plus in terms of effort, because they have realized the gaps and they're trying to close on them. The issue about education is very key, which Matthew Njue has raised, because education is what determines the kind of population you're going to have, whether you're going to be successful or not successful in future. I've been having issues with the university education, with the high school also education. I think we need to be able to streamline. If that was part of the agenda, then I think that is an agenda in the right place, in the right perspective, because in the near future, our education system previously has been considered one of the very most competitive in Africa. We don't want to lose that spot. And we are looking at Vision 2030. We don't want to have our people who cannot be able to fulfill that agenda. I think after 2030, we need to discuss post-2030 what other agenda we need to have. Like now the African Union has Agenda 2063. We need to start crafting a new model of what it is post-2030, because 2030 is a few years away, and we need to start planning early. There are some of the projects which we may not be able to fulfill by then. We need to translate them into the next agenda and then be able to have the human power, the human resources, and that's where education comes in. I think that those are the things which I picked, and I think it's very important we be able to follow through with that.
And because of the interest of time, allow me now to jump to yet another report. Indeed, government can get a clean A in terms of the president following up on what exactly his cabinet and also whipping MPs into actually working for people. I remember some of the things that he said in Naivasha actually touch on individual MPs and ministries as well. But away from that, looking at the report by the Auditor General, the Controller of Budget, first of all, said we are borrowing to party. In short, we are borrowing money, but unfortunately, it's not being used as prudently as it should be. And looking at some of the, just to mention some of the things in that report, wastage and looting. General said 5.7 billion paid to ghost workers, government with due 10 billion not audited, ministry seeking allocations above budget. This is some of the things that we have seen in previous regimes as well. So it seems like that an issue, a big issue that we are having in the country. How do we address this, Imran?
I think we have a very young president. We have a very energetic president. First of all, we must appreciate the work he's doing. He's a hands-on president who wants to know what is happening in his government and whether the policies and the plans of his government is achieved according to, the manifesto they have set in place. But then you understand that we are in Kenya and we are in Africa. Corruption, mainstream corruption, is all over Africa. It is something very difficult to fight and to beat. And you understand that most of the people now working in cabinet secretary positions and PS positions and all levels of government are people who are politicians, majority of them. And every politician has his own way of doing things, left, right, and center. So it is a bit challenge now to this administration to, cut down the dirty deals of these politicians now in very attractive government positions, to, cut down the corruption that is now affecting this government. I think the president has tried in terms of, cutting the cost of government, people going out of the country every now and then, going to retreats in very expensive places. The government, the president has really put his foot on the ground to cut down this, excessive use of government funds. But then it's a challenge, and I think this is where the president needs help from people like ourselves, people who are in, business, people who are in, different levels of government as well, to help fight corruption at the site, at the first site of it.
Engineer, still on the same, there are some counties where we are doing 80% recurrent expenditure and less than 20% on development. corruption has not been factored in there as well. And this is going to cause a big strain, especially now that we are borrowing money to pay recurrent expenditure, as opposed to having developmental projects in the 47 counties and in some of the in the national government. How do we streamline this? Because if you look at some of the figures that being mentioned, a lot is matters infrastructure. Either the roads, either some of these projects that the government has, some of the project that the county as well has. And this is where we are having a lot of pilferages.
You know, for a very long time, infrastructure projects have been the easiest route for corrupt leaders to acquire wealth quickly. And therefore, you will always find everybody wants to allocate more money to an infrastructure or capital project, because that is the one area he or she will be able to easily get out his cut, for the way they call it, chai. But unfortunately, despite all the governments that we've had in the last 20, 30 years, the monster of corruption still continues haunting us. And no successive government has been able to really come out strongly and deal with the issue of corruption. And unfortunately on this government, we have seen another side of what we call for corruption fighting back, in the sense that there are a lot of cases being dropped out by the DPP, or losing the cases cannot continue with prosecution because of lack of evidence or lack of testimony or lack of witnesses. And that shows that now, aside from losing the fight against corruption, corruption is fighting back and it is winning. I think that is very unfortunate, and that's why all these challenges we are having at the county, instead of reducing, they will continue growing, because there is now impunity kicking in. You know very well, you have a way of manipulating the prosecution process and your case being dropped and you not being successfully prosecuted. I was hoping that in this administration, we would see a successful corruption case being prosecuted. And that will send a strong message to those people who are trying to promote corruption. The issue of budgets going all of them to recurrent, to be very honest, I serve in a county position somewhere, and you can see we don't have enough resources. The counties are struggling. They have been devolved a lot of functions, but the resources are still stuck somewhere. The resources are not just stuck somewhere. Maybe they are not enough, because what the Auditor General said yesterday, what we are able to raise as a country is probably 1.5 trillion, but our wish list is over 4 trillion. Yes. Therefore, we'll always borrow, we'll sell assets here and there, we'll borrow, we'll get grants here and there to meet some of these needs. So we will never have enough. But unfortunately, devolution appears to be right now the biggest victim. But I also want to challenge the county administration. Your own source revenue collections have also dwindled as compared to the local governments of the 90s. You are collecting more, yet you are in a bigger economy, you have a bigger population, you have more businesses going around your areas, but you seem now to collect less. Where is that problem? So everybody has a weakness. The county administration cannot also come and say, we are not being given enough because of this and this. Even them, where they are supposed to collect more, they are failing to do that. So we have a problem as a country, and we need to find a way, a conversation that is very clear and very honest with ourselves about this corruption problem.
And let me pick from where Engineer has mentioned that he expected that for the first time ever we will have a case that concludes with maybe a conviction, but unfortunately a corruption case that is, but unfortunately we haven't seen that. And some of the agencies don't seem quite to be working very well to actualize that if at all there is any looting of any money, we should be able to get these guys.
I think there's a weak chain, the weakest chain in that, in the prosecution of corruption cases is really the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution and the people investigating, that is the DCI. They seem to be working in a manner that instead of aiding the cases to be successful, they are aiding them not to be successful. And that I think we have seen it even through the judgments or the acquittals which have happened in the courts. Even the judges or the magistrates are frustrated that they have to ask that, why are you withdrawing this case? Why are you not even cross-examining the witnesses to actually bring out the material which you intended them to bring out? You see, and I think one of the magistrates was very categorical and said, this is the DPP-aided acquittal. Instead of them prosecuting, they are aiding acquittals. So that is what we need to ask ourselves. What is really going on in the office of the DPP? We need some transparency. We need some clear guidance as to what, because to a level that even the judiciary is complaining now that this is not normal, the level of acquittals which we have seen are very many on very key issues of corruption which touch government resources. And it pains even the judiciary or even some of us to see those cases being dropped for very, I can call them scenarios where somebody just creates a scenario and just wants to say that we don't have enough evidence, while in the initial stages there could be. The only other thing is just to do your job. So if we can be able to put the question directly to the DCI and the DPP, I think now the courts have been absolved of the challenge because they are trying to do their part. So that is very important. The other thing is what engineer said is that monies are being stolen, left, right, and center. You find that the resources have been allocated to government institutions, but then they end up disappearing. When you give money to the counties, also the monies are also successfully utilized into the pockets of the officials down there. If we can be able to check, we can clearly be able to check how these resources are used, and the reports are there. The beautiful thing with Kenya is that the reports are there, is just to follow through and be able to prosecute the people who are culpable.
All right. Gentlemen, let me give you 30 seconds to your final comments as you wrap up.
Okay, my parting shot to Kenyans is the newfound relationship between, Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga and His Excellency the President should set a new precedent in the political environment here in Kenya, that there is no enmity or political indifference that can last forever, that there are possibilities in the political environment in Kenya to set up our differences and work together for the greater good of this beautiful nation called Kenya.
Thank you, Imran. Engineer.
For me, it's just to wish the opposition leader all the best in his bid for the AU chairmanship, and to encourage the country to stand behind him. His win is a win for all of us. Also for this government, I want to just say, it's good to have conversations, but actions are better. Let us see real action on the ground in terms of fighting corruption and bettering the welfare of this country.
Sorry.
Mine is to thank the President for his goodwill, because now at least you have started seeing his goodwill being manifest even in his cabinet. He's able to demand accountability. That is what we have been yearning for. And the fact that we've been able to see him do that, we will want to encourage him, that he actually ensures that whatever it is they agreed in Naivasha is actually actualized. And from there, we will wish that the office of the DPP also manifests in the same goodwill, the same spirit hits them, so that they can be able to prosecute the people who steal our resources successfully.
All right. Thank you so much. There has been Gibson Gisore, an advocate of the High Court of Kenya and also a lecturer and also governance expert. Just next to him, we have Engineer Crispas Wadimba, who is also an engineer, a structural infrastructure expert, and also a governance and leadership expert. And just next to him, we have Imran Mohammed, who is a UDM youth leader and also a public policy analyst. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your insight and your time. Let's do this another time. My name is Bentro Njue. Byron Abuli was our to the Swahili desk. We have Gladys Mongai with Tamrini and Kurunzi Mashinani. Do have yourself a blessed afternoon. Let's continue this conversation on social media. And I leave you with what Professor Wallace Oyinka said. No one is rich enough to buy tomorrow, but if you hustle hard enough, tomorrow could be yours. In everything you do, put God first. Have a good one.
Colgate Herbal is formulated from a unique blend of natural herbs and is scientifically proven to strengthen teeth and keep gums healthy. Try Colgate Herbal, scientifically proven for strong teeth and healthy gums.
你到底想要我干我什么？我就一棵树嘛，这里最不缺的就是树，毕竟年龄大了，多的是。
更深层的东西，我准备给中央写信。